and our allies coming together on what more we can do to support the Ukrainian government and people as they fight for their homeland. This morning, I met with Prime Minister of Ukraine, Denis Shmyhal, and I shared with him our continued firm stance alongside Ukraine as they defend their lives and their country. I'm committed to working with our partners and allies to support Ukraine's economic needs in the short term and the long term. In the meeting, I shared the United States' commitment to another $500 million of immediate funding to help Ukraine continue critical government operations, such as salaries, pensions, and other social assistance programs necessary to avoid a worsening of the humanitarian situation in Ukraine. And this builds on the $500 million that President Biden committed to President Zelensky in March. The needs of Ukraine are urgent, and we plan to deploy this direct aid to Ukraine as soon as possible to be used on the most urgent needs. We know this is only the beginning of what Ukraine will need to rebuild, and I'm committed to working with Congress and with our international allies and partners to build on this support in the medium and long term. The power of working together with our partners has been essential in supporting Ukraine and in confronting Russia. In fact, Russia's war brought about the kind of swift and multilateral response not seen for decades. The coalition includes more than 30 countries from around the globe who represent more than 50% of the global economy, issue the world's most widely used convertible currencies, and produce the world's cutting-edge technologies. The tremendous blow on the Russian economy resulting from our sanctions is only possible because of the breadth of our coalition. This week, our partners and allies agreed to continue united efforts to maximize economic pressure on Russia. Yesterday, we continued to tighten the vice of our economic pressure campaign against Russia by targeting financial and operational support networks used in attempts to evade U.S. sanctions. Treasury sanctioned a Russian bank at the heart of such efforts, as well as a network of cutouts, proxies, and facilitators used by the oligarch Konstantin Malofeyev. I want to mention, before taking your questions, the rising threat of food insecurity. I'm deeply concerned about this risk to emerging and developing countries, particularly those still recovering from the pandemic. There's a very real risk that soaring global market prices of food and fertilizer will result in more people going hungry, further exacerbate inflation, and harm government fiscal and external positions. And we are doing everything we can, both bilaterally and through the international financial institutions, to address the food security risks. I convened a productive meeting this week with counterparts where we discussed developing and putting into action ways to address the growing crisis of 275 million people around the world facing acute food insecurity and over 800 million people facing chronic food insecurity. We will share more action items resulting from that meeting in the coming weeks. Lastly, we also discussed the global need to end the pandemic and prevent future ones. Global health emergencies are no longer a once-in-a-generation threat, and we must act now so that the tragic impacts of COVID do not recur. Our top priority is to end the COVID-19 pandemic, and we must press forward to overcome the hurdles to vaccinating at least 70% of the population in all countries. But we also need to learn the lessons of this pandemic and advance plans to reform the global health security architecture. With increasing pandemic threats, climate change, and conflict, experts agree COVID-19 will not be our last major global health emergency.